That was a great lead into what we're going to be talking about, thinking about the service provider side of how to actually execute on the enterprise side. So if I could invite my panel out one by one. First we'll have Karthik Sethuraman, who's the Regional Product Head, America's Core Connectivity Services at Tata Communications. Welcome, Karthik. You've already met Dan Snyder, who's Chief Principal Architect at UPMC. Welcome, Dan. And you really just already met Jeremy Villalobos, who's CEO at Orchest. Jeremy? He rolled up his sleeves to transition to the next. Yeah, all right. And last but certainly not least, Mirko Voltolini, who is the Vice President of Innovation at Colt. All right. Welcome, guys. All right. So like Mauricio said earlier, MEF invited us to present some slides, and my marketing team would be really mad at me if I said no to that. But here's the thing, I actually just kind of snuck in some MEF stuff to my first slide here. This particular panel actually has, if you look in the agenda, attached to it a white paper that was authored by some folks on stage here. So that's a good connection. And as I was reading this white paper, well done, I really liked the transformation driver definition. So why do we need NaaS in the marketplace right now? So I have that laid out here because I thought most of you probably won't click through to the white paper while we're sitting and watching it. But just briefly, enterprises are increasingly moving their workloads to cloud environments, which offer major benefits like scalability and agility, allowing enterprises to spin up applications and scale them up and down in near real time. Here's the problem statement. However, the networks required to connect to these workloads are still often sold and managed in a legacy format with long fixed-term contracts and lengthy delivery time. So that, I think, was a really good explanation of why we need NaaS in the marketplace right now. And then I also really liked the definition, the combination of one or more of the following across a standards-based automated ecosystem: on-demand connectivity, application assurance, cybersecurity, and multi-cloud-based services. So those are going to influence sort of the whole rest of the panel. But first, I did want to show you a little bit of TeleGeography data because I think it helps frame where we need to go with enterprise services. So what you're looking at is we do a survey of WAN managers that just where they're at with their network strategies. We added a NaaS question in 2022, and then you're looking at data from Q4 22 and Q4 23. So this isn't totally fresh. But if you notice, have purchased and used NaaS was 5% in 2022 of our respondents, and 8% in 2023. So uptake is still pretty low in terms of folks that are actually using it from the enterprise side now. However, you can see that in the process of adopting, there's some have begun doing research. There's about a quarter. And the really interesting, I think, takeaway from this one is that I had just not familiar with NaaS as an option in this survey. And that was like a third of my respondents in 2022, and that had fallen way down to below 1 in 10 by 2023. So I do think some of the customer education that you guys are working on has really been happening, and we're working towards, hey, I'm a network manager, I have all of these things to think about all the time. What's my next step? And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start out, sort of going back to that definition that I had the slide on. I think you might have written that part, right. Karthik. Right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I'll start with you, and I was kind of going to ask this question from where are your companies with solving that problem now, but I think I might want to spin it a little bit. I apologize for any change here, but onto how do we need to see things develop? Well, we kind of just saw Jeremy's answer to that, but we'll start with you, Karthik. Yeah.
Okay. So before I get into any of those, right, a little bit of a plug for MEF work, right? So I'm also the co-chair of the MEF Commercial and Business Committee, and the NaaS white paper, which Greg referenced, we developed it in the committee, right? And it was a member-driven effort. And the reason we did that was actually, I mean, I wish I had that and I would have put it in the white paper, your survey, right? Most of us were like, as product managers, we found that the customers they were like fairly confused about what is meant by NaaS, because people are using NaaS for everything, right? And we felt that, okay, we needed to clarify and sort of crisp the definition of, so that as product managers, we can go and say customers like, hey, this is what NaaS means. This is what we as a group here in MEF think NaaS should be, right?
And this is
that
the
was the background
solving, right?
Yeah, that's the problem, right? It was simple education problem first, right? It's a white paper, right? So, and we went through that and we spent about 3 quarters like actually debating, because it's not that simple when you get like 4, 5, 6 service providers in one call to decide like what is our essential features, right? We had to agree that these are the essential features. Everything else that we might be having in our product, right? It's good, but it could be like non-essential, maybe desired, or like like extended features kind of subset, right? So we spent some time there. So what you see in the white paper is the consensus definition of at least the service providers that were like that went into developing those white papers, and there are about 8 or 10 names on that. Right? So that's the background. Now, coming to like your question was like, where are we?
So an enterprise has this problem. They come to you and say, I have this problem. What can we do to solve it right now? And what do we need to keep doing to move that forward, right?
Right. So the common problem the enterprises, if you see really like the simplest problem that if you like, which is there in the white paper, is they just want like visibility into the network, right? The first thing, right? The basic one is like really not so much NaaS. It should have it's been there around, but like it's not really been very well exposed to the customers, right? So all they want is like visibility. Okay, I want something happens in the network, I want to see it right away. And we heard from the enterprise panel, like which was earlier in the morning, where they incubated a project here in CBC again, which is basically giving the notifications of any incidents in the network, right? The second thing, which at least I see, is like on demand, right? Network on demand. It's not a new concept to many of us service providers. We have had it, but really like they're looking for like scaling their capacity when they need it, or getting the connectivity when they need it, and when they don't need it, they want to turn it down.
Right.
Which is like more like driven from the cloud like consumption models.
This mismatch with how they consume cloud services and how they consume network. Right?
And that didn't really exist before, because they were not really using many of these connectivities from that perspective, right? So these are the kind of 2 major aspects that I see, and of course, going with that is also the commercial models. Right now, once you had the visibility into the network, you have the on-demand capability where you can like order connectivity or scale up and down connectivity. You don't want to pay for something that you're not using. So that's like the flexible commercial model, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some of my customers, they prefer like monthly subscription, right? Because it's all about how they have internal budgeting and processes, right? How do they get
predictability?
So, and some of them would want to pay when they use it, right? And they do have that sort of commercial flexibility that they just paid for like 5-6 days when they need the capacity, like maybe like 10-20 gig, just because they are transferring some large LLMs across. So they just need connectivity for a short period, right? So so really like it's about flexibility, flexible commercial models, right? And of course then like we have the security added on top, and then multi-product, multi-technology, and then single access points. So all of this sort of follows
we're going to get to that.
We'll get to that, but I'll let others
it becomes
answer
more
that,
complicated, absolutely,
right. So it just sort of builds one on top of other, right? It's not just a single thing that has NaaS.
Right. Now, Dan, I won't forget about you, because I'm going to go through the carrier perspective first and then get to the customer side. But so, Jeremy, thinking about the enterprise, now we were just looking at sort of what we're working on at MEF a lot of the times, the back end, but do you think that this is the right problem to be solving with NaaS, and how are you guys able to approach the enterprise with that solution now?
So it's very important to consider that the enterprises in some specific regions, they go all the way to a specific building, not necessarily a data center. So the primarily on-demand concept is between connectivity between data centers. In the Latam region, you see 95% of the requirements going into a last mile. So to create a scalable model like the on-demand that you see between data centers is kind of complicated, because you got to go through an installation process. But the fact that your backbone is on-demand capable, it reduces the time frame to turn off that service. Also, if you do a higher port, you can operate that service in a dynamic way. So you can predict how particular customer is going to use the service on that particular location. Also, NaaS satisfies so many scopes of the business. Right. You know, like I was presenting the hardware marketplace. You know, it's all about listening to the customers and understanding what really are they needing from us, and not just being creative and launching things that we feel are going to be cliche, you know. Right. But we need to listen to the customer and really focus on the customer experience, which has been our drive in Orchest. Always listening to the client. We consider ourselves a very customer-centric organization, that we are willing to sacrifice some business processes in order for the good of the experience of the client. Mm-hmm. Also, with Orchest Automation, we did a couple of partnerships that are very fundamental. One is with Odoo, which is a CRM ERP company. They have an ecosystem of thousands of applications. So before creating the product, we made sure to do the customizations and adaptation to absorb those applications in a friendly manner, which we can turn them up really quick. So what you saw on the demonstration is just a base of things that clients can do. But it's important to react quick on what they need and have the available options for them to implement. Also, we partner with NI2, which is an inventory management platform. We're integrating the Orchest platform with NI2, so we can integrate. We can talk to each other in a very efficient manner when it comes to analyzing network inventory data and providing 100% accurate feasibility analysis. Right. If we concentrate only on data center to data center, that's just, in my perspective, 30% of the requirement. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other 70%, it is to an actual building where is an office, desk, and people working on it. A data center is just servers. Right. So that's my perspective on the enterprise side.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mirko, working in Europe, very different situation in the last mile than in LATAM, for example, a lot more likely to have fiber to the premises. I know that Colt has been offering end-to-end NaaS products. How well are you achieving that now, and when is that difficult? Is it always when the customer is off net, or have you even gotten through that problem?
So yeah, the experience we have, we're a global provider, and our customers tends to have global needs. Mm-hmm. So also for us, it's been important to try and get as much as possible coverage. We cover 30,000 buildings, enterprise buildings on our network, and about 1,000, few hundred data centers, and multiple clouds, but also expanding to off-net connectivity through what we call hybrid on-net, so leased fiber coverage that we can actually extend our network with deploying our own technology, and also off-net, real off-net lead services has been quite important. If you look at, I don't know, we sell SD-WAN services today, 70% of the sites tends to be in a non-called location, regardless of how many we have. Mm-hmm. That's how the nature of the business is. It's that kind of type of customers, large multinational with global needs. So if you don't have that capability, then it's hard to present a NaaS solutions to an enterprise, because I can solve 30% of your needs, but then 70% is not covered. So I think that's been a limitation in the beginning. It's been a journey, but then now we solved it, and it took a number of years. We have launched our first NaaS service like 8 years ago, so it's been quite a journey over time. Another aspect I think I want to touch on enterprise is repeat buyers versus one-off, one-time buyer. Mm-hmm. There are companies that tends to buy networks once every 5 years, and I think some of them do not really feel like they need to have a digital process for it, because it's anyway, it's going to take time. It
can take a long time if it's only every 5 years.
Don't even want to get close to using a digital interface. Mm-hmm. Part of it is part of the current purchasing processes companies have, but that's the experience we have. While the repeat buyers tends to be much faster, and some enterprises falls in a category like carriers, so they are kind of like more like carriers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, so we've heard the carriers, now we get to hear from the customer side of the world. So Dan, thinking back to that problem statement, you're consuming cloud services, but you can't consume network the same way necessarily. Is that a sufficient statement of the problem? Is there anything missing from it, you think?
No, I think it does meet the problem. I mean, I agree with the other panelists saying that the problem for most enterprises is the last mile.
Right.
That's like for the data center, yeah, we can turn up things right away.
That was true long before we were having conversations about NaaS or anything else.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the last mile. Because like for us, it's like 120 to 180 days for most sites to have that last mile built out.
So as I'll throw you a little curveball there. So as a network manager, assuming that new underlay technologies become commercially available to you, does that help fixed wireless access, low Earth orbit, satellites, that kind of thing, or is that difficult for you to deal with?
We're looking into things like satellite
LEO and
communication, LEO and Starlink, stuff like that. Because there's certain areas that there's like rural Pennsylvania. We have areas that there is less than 70% cell coverage in areas.
Right.
So like if we have a mobile health van that goes to areas that are underserved, and they need to have some way to upload x-rays and other things to have doctors look at them.
Right.
And so really the only option is satellite there.
Yeah, if anybody ever listens to my podcast, it's something I repeat myself on all the time, but it's really hard, just in the physical sense, to dig holes, right, or hang wires on poles, right? That's in the end, there's that physical problem that no amount of automation could ever overcome if the wires aren't there or if there's not some kind of connectivity, right? Yeah, Karthik.
Yeah. So there are two parts here again to that, just to supplement what they said, right? Most enterprise buildings, well-known buildings, there is someone there, right? For example, like we have like I think 18 or 28,000 locations in India, right? But we don't have any in Europe. Same thing, we don't have anything in LATAM.
Right.
So that's where the next part where the MEF again can come in, right? Which is like we really need an ecosystem, right? And we need standardized way to actually offer on demand, right? Not just simply order last mile and then you after 2 or 3 months you get something, right? You got to be able to find who is at a given location, order it, and actually even take the on demand, right? If someone wants only 2G, I don't have to take 10G last mile to do it, because then it starts becoming like commercially prohibitive, right, to offer on demand, right? On our core, we have on demand, you get 2G, but like when you go to last mile, I have to charge you for the 10G of the last mile, right? So we have to overcome that, I guess, as an industry, right? So we do have a large footprint. And the second thing actually, which from our offerings is, we also have something called managed Wi-Fi as a service, and LAN as a service, right? Which now what we believe is NaaS cannot just be tied down to the core, and it has to go into your campuses, right? And really, it's all about the true. If you look at cloud model, is you don't own any infrastructure, so you don't. Some enterprises will want to own their campus. But really, like most of the time, it's not by choice. So do you really want to own your Wi-Fi devices, routers internally, right, inside your campuses, inside your buildings? Right? I believe that also has to be part of the NaaS story. It's not going to happen right away, right? It's a journey, right? We have to start somewhere, and we started from the core data center to data center, and then we expand to the last miles, and then the campuses. But really, like just from the networking perspective, forgetting the overlays, right? We have to get there where the enterprise customers, if they don't want to own any kind of networking hardware, right, they should have the choice not to do it.
Yeah, right? and then rip and replace becomes a whole lot easier.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, it's a technology.
Exactly.
There's no like technology bottleneck anymore, right? You can always get the latest. Let the service providers decide, like when it's time to upgrade. And
interesting. We're going as an industry going back to the old days when Ma Bell owned your telephone in your house, right? So,
I mean it's there are pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
I mean now like my DVR still like I rent it.
Right.
I mean, I could buy it outright, but I prefer it because my provider gave me a choice that hey, like when there's a new upgrade or new device, I'll replace it, right? So I'm one of the few guys who keep a DVR along with.
That's right. With the rest of us are streaming, that's okay.
Right. So but there are like pros and cons there, and also having CPs from service providers, we can provide a lot more services in there, right? Like firewalls, and we can take care of the security aspect. So there is a lot of advantages for enterprises. I'm not talking end customers at home, right? I'm talking about enterprises to sort of outsource it or manage the service providers, not just the core connectivities.
Yeah, so Dan, I want to go back to you for this question. Thinking about that chart that I showed that 8%, again, it was a year ago, so it's higher now, but 8% of the folks I surveyed were actively using a NaaS service now. one, are you? and two, what do you need to get there as the enterprise sort of representative? When are we going to see those numbers increase, you think? Like, what do we need from these guys to say, yeah, we're ready to jump into this?
I guess I don't think we're currently using NaaS. We want to use certain portions of it, like to be able to, like what MEF's done for APIs and seeing the visibility of like who offers what service at an address, what's the pricing, what's the lead time for it. That's very interesting to us because we always have people moving around, new offices opening. I guess until I came to the GNE last year, I really wasn't sure what NaaS was either. I had a different conceptual viewpoint of what it was. So I think probably that's why your numbers are off, because I don't know a lot of my colleagues who also view NaaS as what we've described in the past week. So I think that's part of the problem, like how it's being marketed to the industry, specifically to enterprises. I don't remember the rest.
All right, so good message to the audience here that we need to think about how we approach the enterprise with this, how we explain what they can do with it, what the features are, right, and get that message out. A lot of avenues. That's why MEF has focused so much on having like the media and the analysts here and all that sort of thing. So we all need to work towards getting that out there. Jeremy, how about from your perspective, serving customers? Have you seen interest grow? Have you seen understanding of what they can do with this technology increase?
I think it's also the service provider responsibility to drive the customer towards NaaS.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot just sit and wait for the customer to come and say, you know, I want to use it. You got to drive the customer into the journey. They go back, and then you drive them back into the process. Something that we do in Orchest is even though they want to start, they want to keep doing things manually, we take them back to the automated journey. So we drive them into the platform or into the different automated process by providing the link or pushing them back into the experience that we're trying to and encourage them to be part of. It is a process. It is a learning curve that we have to be part of it. Webinars, a lot of marketing. These events are very useful in which we collaborate with each other. Collaboration is huge, because if we are all driving on the same direction, adoption is going to go high. I mean, I'm proud to say that we're interconnected with Tata and Colt, not only on the network side, but also on the automation side through MEF. So it is important to drive and keep up that momentum and push and being consistent on the message. And it's just a matter of time because the actual customers are asking for a better experience. And a better experience involves automation. We cannot continue providing a better experience manually, by email, the customers are not asking for that. And the perception that we're seeing is that, can you do this around the world? Because we only do LATAM right now. Can you license the platform? Because they want to see more of that out there. So I believe we are experiencing an important moment in our history in which you're going to start seeing drastically move into automation. And I believe, and I strongly believe, those that do not pursue that path, I don't know if we're going to see them around.
Change or die, right?
Yeah.
So Mirko, having had a service available to customers for quite some time, have you seen sort of success in having the customers understand what they can do with this technology and how to leverage it?
Yeah, the uptake, if I go back to the history, initially it was just carriers. Then it was carriers and some enterprises. Then it's been growing a little bit, but still the majority of what we have delivered is on the carrier side or repeat enterprise with repeat buying needs, as I mentioned earlier. So I think there is definitely a question of learning. Earlier I mentioned, you don't want to use a NaaS service to buy a network you buy only 5 years. Still, there are advantages. I don't think we have been very clear with the customer. Maybe there has also not been so much hype in the market about NaaS as there's been, for instance, for SD-WAN, that brought a lot of enterprises to look at this. So it's been a slow journey in terms of the uptake. One thing we're thinking or currently building is some sort of a assisted self-serve, where we actually enable customers to access a human person, so some individual that can help take them through the digital journey. So it's not like you're on your own.
Right.
And I think that for certain enterprises is needed, because today they are being served by an account manager, by I don't know, a bunch of service delivery operational people, and being in front of a tool, whatever. However, that tool is easy to use is not sufficient.
Of course, yeah. Everything takes, even if it's the best tool in the world, there's still a learning curve, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. All right, so if we go back to MEF, it wasn't GNE then, but let's say 2018, 2019, before COVID, we would have been talking about SD-WAN, right? And at that stage, you would have been talking about the sort of sine qua nons of SD-WAN, like load balancing, forward error correction, right? Now, looking back, SD-WAN has become a lot more than that, including is fully integrated with cybersecurity. If we look at this white paper definition of NaaS, for example, if we were talking a couple of years ago, what did NaaS mean? It meant consuming network like cloud, like on-demand network services, essentially, right? But in our definition here, we have on-demand connectivity, okay, that part, the application assurance, cybersecurity, multi-cloud-based services across the standard-based automated ecosystem. So I just want each of you to kind of go through, and I'm actually going to start with you, Dan. Do you think that this definition is comprehensive from the enterprise perspective, or are there services that you think belong in that bundle that they're missing still?
As related to SD-WAN and NaaS?
Well, as related to, okay, if I'm going to rethink how I purchase and use my network, are there other services or the feature set that MEF is kind of providing, is that what you're looking for? Or even simpler, is it all you're looking for would be a temporary on-demand kind of network consumption that looks more like a cloud model?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is what we're looking for. I would say the only thing to add to that is I think visibility and control of, like if say it's a pure NaaS offering where you're actually, the ISP is delivering the router, managing the CPE for you, like having the control of how updates are applied, understanding if you can postpone those updates, like based on business needs, stuff like that. I think that's still to be solved by the industry. And also there's all this talk about campus NaaS. For that, like all the vendors that I currently have seen that offer campus NaaS, the feature set is too small. Like they don't offer exactly all the features most enterprises need in the campus. But that could be the same case for the SD-WAN too. I don't know. We haven't looked at a managed offering of SD-WAN. Well,
so Jeremy, you were showing us some of the visibility tools, since Dan brought that up, that are integrated into this. Do you think that the sort of way we're thinking about the feature set is what enterprises need? Is there anything that we're missing that we need to look forward to yet?
I think 100%. It's about empowering the clients. Even though if they don't ask something and you can provide additional information that it can increase the confidence of the services that they're utilizing in your network, 100% being proactive on the things that you do. Talking about SD-WAN, there is an issue in Latin America where you can buy standalone internet services, and when you put the SD-WAN on top, then you have latency issues because these IP networks are meeting each other in Europe and the US. Right. So understanding those challenges and not waiting for the client to jump in and say, this is not working, but I gave you an internet access. So we created an optimal routing solution that basically control the IP routing of the internet access, and it's being controlled through the platform. So I believe proactivity is very important when it comes to adapt to the market and what they're needing. And I believe MEF is doing a great job keeping up with the pace on things that needs to be done. Hats off to the management team in MEF, because they're really keeping up the pace and the momentum.
Absolutely. We're actually really low on time, I just realized. So Mirko or Karthik, any final thoughts on the features that you have available now and where we might need to get with the NaaS offering for the enterprise?
I think I would add that, again, reinforcing the point, than made on the fact that the more services we can add, the more comprehensive the offer can be to serve enterprises. If I really look at in an honest way, connectivity is just a small portion of what enterprises buy. So if you buy a campus as a service and it covers only, again, half of the features you have, you may be tempted, easily tempted to go and build your own thing. So the more we can expand and cover.
Karthik, I'll give you the last word. How's that?
Yeah, so we are looking at NaaS as a piece of the bigger puzzle. We have something called the vision called digital fabric, in which is like there are 4 pillars there, and network fabric is one of it, right? There are other parts of it, like interaction fabric and so on, which includes like how would you interact, using modern tools, right? Like call centers, chats and so on, right? So there is a whole lot of things. So network is one part of it, but even network really, like we spoke about it, right? It's really about building on top of what we have. I mean, we most of us, like Jeremy mentioned, start with data center, but we have to be able to get to a point where it becomes like zero ownership model, no capex, and entire opex for the enterprise customers, right? I mean, I believe that's where we should go as an NaaS, as the end goal, right? I mean, network as a service should really be a service.
Right. Yeah.
Not that I have to own some pieces and then rest I do on demand. Right.
All right. That's a great way to end. Please join me in thanking our panel.
Right. Thank you.